గద్వాల, వనపర్తి, నాగర్ కర్నూల్, నానపేట్, నాగర్ కర్నూలే కాకుండా నిజామాబాద్ జిల్లాలో మా ఏఎన్ఏ న్యూస్ ఛానల్ తరపున మీ డిజిటల్ ఆన్లైన్ క్లాసెస్ ద్వారా మీ విద్యార్థులకు బోధించవచ్చు.
हम आपके शहर निजामाबाद, महबूबनगर, गद्वाल, नारायणपेट, वनपर्ती और नागर कर्नूल में भी दस्तयाब हैं. आप जानते हैं कि देश में कोविड-19 कहां से आया है. आप ये भी जानते हैं हमारे देश में सैनिकों को किसने मारा. यकीनन उस देश को, इस देश से उनके हर वो चीज को और वो ऐप को इस देश से उखाड़ कर फेंकना है. आप और हम मिलकर कदम उठाएंगे.
అయితే ఇంకెందుకు ఆలస్యం, మీ ఆన్లైన్ డిజిటల్ క్లాసెస్ కోసం సంప్రదించవలసిన మా చిరునామా ఏఎన్ఏ న్యూస్ ఛానల్, ఓల్డ్ ఆర్టీఓ ఆఫీస్, మహబూబ్ నగర్ జిల్లా. మీరు సంప్రదించవలసిన మా ఫోన్ నెంబర్లు 9502612340.
Online classes is just a call away.
విద్యార్థుల భవిష్యత్తుకు బాటలు వేస్తూ మునుపెన్నడూ ఎరుగని అత్యుత్తమమైన ఫలితాలతో అద్భుతమైన విద్యా ప్రమాణాలతో ముందుకు దూసుకుపోతోంది శ్రద్ధ జూనియర్ కళాశాల. మహబూబ్ నగర్ జిల్లా కేంద్రంలో ప్రముఖులు, అనుభవజ్ఞులైన చైర్మన్ జగపతిరావు ఆధ్వర్యంలో 2011లో స్థాపించబడిన మా శ్రద్ధ జూనియర్ కళాశాల ఉన్నతమైన విద్యా ప్రమాణాలతో ఇంజనీరింగ్, మెడికల్లో చక్కని ర్యాంకుల సాధనలో విజయం వైపుగా కృషి చేస్తోంది. ఇంజనీరింగ్ అయినా, మెడికల్ అయినా శ్రద్ధ జూనియర్ కళాశాల విద్యార్థులదే పై చేయి. ఇంటర్ తో పాటు ఐఐటి, నీట్, ఎంసెట్ నందు లాంగ్ టర్మ్ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ ద్వారా కార్పొరేట్ కళాశాలలో 20 సంవత్సరాల అనుభవం కలిగిన అధ్యాపక బృందంచే ప్రత్యేక శిక్షణ తరగతులు నిర్వహిస్తూ డైలీ ప్రాక్టీస్ పేపర్స్, వీక్లీ టెస్ట్, కౌన్సిలింగ్ ద్వారా విద్యార్థుల నైపుణ్యం మెరుగుపరచడం మా ప్రత్యేకత. హ్యాండ్బాల్, ఫుట్బాల్, క్రికెట్ లో మా విద్యార్థులు జాతీయ క్రీడాకారులుగా గుర్తింపు పొందుతున్నారు. జిల్లా కేంద్రంలో సొంత భవనాలలో కళాశాలలు, విద్యార్థులకు ఉదయం, సాయంత్రం వేళలో స్టడీ అవర్స్, ఐఐటి, నీట్ లో ప్రముఖుల నిపుణులచే విద్యా బోధన, బాలికల కోసం ప్రత్యేక క్యాంపస్, ఎంపీసీ, బైపీసీ గ్రూప్లతో కో ఎడ్యుకేషన్, ఎంపీసీ, బైపీసీ, ఎంఈసీ, సిఈసీ గ్రూప్లతో గర్ల్స్ క్యాంపస్, ఎంపీసీ, బైపీసీ గ్రూప్లతో పాటు ఐఐటి, నీట్, ఎంసెట్లతో అకాడమీ.
I am Maryam Maqbool. I passed out from Shraddha Junior College in 2017 from BPC. Currently, I have passed out from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. I finished my bachelor's. So one thing which is very striking about this institute is the immense and genuine amount of effort that the team of faculty puts and takes up for the success of students and their prosperity. And another thing that is very remarkable about this place is they ignited in me the spirit of competitiveness, which is very necessary in this globally evolving market world. There was one Sanskrit slok which I learnt when I was very young. Udyame nahi siddhyanti karyani na manorataihi nahi suptasya simhasya pravishyanti mukhe mruga. This means you cannot just achieve anything just by thinking of it. You need to put in effort. That is what I have learnt from this institute. Like, even though lion is king of jungle, it has to hunt for its own prey, which is what I have learnt from Shraddha Junior College.
I am Uday Kiran. I have completed my intermediate in Shraddha Junior College in 2019 and I have joined Srinidhi Institute of Science and Technology and I scored my JEE Mains percentile as 98.19 and due to some other problems I didn't join NIT and I have scored my MSET rank as 4500 and here the lecturers take the special care with each and every student.
సీనియర్ మరియు జూనియర్ ఇంటర్ అడ్మిషన్ల కోసం సంప్రదించవలసిన మా చిరునామా శ్రద్ధ జూనియర్ కళాశాల, కో ఎడ్యుకేషన్ క్యాంపస్, మెట్టుగడ్డ. మీరు సంప్రదించవలసిన మా ఫోన్ నెంబర్ 9494430200. ప్రత్యేకమైన గర్ల్స్ క్యాంపస్ కోసం సంప్రదించవలసిన మా చిరునామా ఆపోజిట్ పంచవటి హోటల్, న్యూ టౌన్, మహబూబ్ నగర్. మా ఫోన్ నెంబర్ 7337294653. ఐఐటి, నీట్ అకాడమీ కోసం సంప్రదించవలసిన మా చిరునామా శ్రద్ధ జూనియర్ కళాశాల, మెట్టుగడ్డ. మా ఫోన్ నెంబర్ 9491629962.
Good morning. Welcome to online class Botany first year. So in last class we discussed about that the prokaryotic cell structure. Prokaryotic cell. Let me continue few points about the prokaryotic cells. The ribosomes and inclusive bodies, ribosomes and inclusive bodies in the prokaryotic cell. In prokaryotic cell, the ribosomes are associated with the membrane. So, in prokaryotes, in prokaryotic cell, prokaryotic cell, ribosomes are associated with the plasma membrane, which range the 15 nanometers to 20 nanometers size. The ribosomes are 15 nanometers to 20 nanometers, which are made of with two subunits. That is 30S and 50S. So, both these subunits are unite together to form 70S ribosomes. So, both the subunits are unite together to form 70S type of ribosomes. Thus, in prokaryotes, 70S type of ribosomes are present. So, many ribosomes in prokaryotes, many ribosomes are attached to the single mRNA. Many ribosomes are attached to the single mRNA. This is mRNA. mRNA stand. So many ribosomes are attached to the mRNA known as polyribosomes or polysomes. So polyribosomes are. So the polyribosomes. So the ribosomes are synthesize the proteins. Ribosomes are synthesize the proteins, which are synthesize the protein. The ribosomes are, what is the function of ribosomes? Ribosomes are synthesize the proteins. The proteins are synthesized by ribosomes. So, the many ribosomes are attached with the single strand mRNA, then it is called polyribosomes or It is important for 2 marks. What is polyribosomes and its function? Many in prokaryotes, many ribosomal units or ribosomes are attached to the mRNA, then it is called polyribosome or polysomes. So what is the function of ribosome? Function of the ribosome is protein synthesis. Then it is called protein synthesizing factories. Cell protein synthesis factories are ribosomes. Cell protein synthesis factories are ribosomes, which is also known as protein synthesis factories of the cell. Protein. So, what about polyribosomes? The polyribosomes are translate amino acids into proteins. The polyribosomes are mRNA. Polyribosomes are translate the amino acids into proteins. It is protein translation. The amino acids are translated into proteins. That is the ribosomes in prokaryotic cells. So, in prokaryotic cells, some of the inclusion bodies are present freely in the membrane, in the cytoplasm. So, in prokaryotic cells, the inclusive bodies are present in the cytoplasm without membrane bond. The inclusion bodies are present in the prokaryotic cells, which are the storage particles to storage granules. So that is the food material granules, glycogen granules, cyanophasian granules. These are the inclusive bodies. The food material granules, glycogen granules, and cyanophasian granules are inclusive bodies of the prokaryotes. Inclusive bodies of the, which are present in the cytoplasm without membrane bound. They are food material storage structures. That is food material granules, glycogen granules, cyanophasian granules. And also the gas vacuoles are present. Gas vacuoles also present, also inclusive body of prokaryotes, which are present in bacteria, blue-green algae, purple-green bacteria, which are present in blue-green algae. The gas vacuoles are present, blue-green algae, purple-green bacteria, which are useful for buoyancy of the prokaryotic cells, which free float on the water because of the gas vacuoles. So this is we discussed we discussed here the ribosomes and inclusive bodies of in prokaryote cells. Ribosomes are associated with the plasma membrane, cell membrane, which are range 30 by 15 nanometers to 20 nanometers in size, made up with the two subunits, 30s subunit, 50s subunit. So this is 30s subunit, this is 50s subunit. The ribosomes consist of two subunits, small subunit, larger subunit. So smaller subunit is 30s and larger one is 50s. So which are bind together during the protein synthesis to form a 70s. During the protein synthesis, both the subunits are bind together with the concentration of the magnesium. The concentration of the magnesium which make the two units bind together. Then it is known as 70s ribosomes. So what is the function of ribosomes? Ribosomes are protein which synthesize proteins. So protein synthesis factories. So ribosomes are synthesize the proteins. In prokaryotes, many ribosomes are attached to the single mRNA. Then it is called polyribosome or polysome. So what is the function of polyribosome? It translates the amino acids into proteins. So it will translate the amino acids into proteins. So these prokaryotic cells having the inclusive bodies, that is food material or food material storage organs, which are non-membrane bound inclusive bodies. So they are food granules, glycogen granules, and cyanophasian granules. And also another inclusion is gas vacuole. Gas vacuoles also present in the cytoplasm of the prokaryotic cells, which are present in the blue-green algae, purple-green bacteria. What is the use? It help in buoyancy of the prokaryotic cells. So now let me move about briefly eukaryotic cells. So the eukaryotic cells are present. The eukaryotic cells are present in protista, plants, animals, and fungi, algae. So the eukaryotic cells are present in protista. So brief discussion about the eukaryotic cells are present in the organism which have the eukaryotic cells are the protista, an organism, a single unicellular organisms that having the distinct nucleus. So prokaryotic, eukaryotic means having the distinct nucleus. Distinct nucleus is present. So clear. Whereas in prokaryotes, there is no clear nucleus. There is no distinct nucleus. Absent. Distinct nucleus is present, distinct nucleus is absent. Because of the presence of distinct nucleus, it is called eukaryotic cell. Because of the absence of distinct nucleus, they are called prokaryotes. Prokaryotes are includes the blue-green algae, bacterial cells. Blue-green algae, bacterial cells, mycoplasma. Whereas eukaryotic cells includes the protista, fungi, animals, plants, algae. Protista, fungi, animals, plants, algae. In eukaryotic cells, the cells are completely bounded with the outer wall, that is a cell wall. Cell wall. So just an outer membrane of the outer layer of the cell membrane, that is the, and outside the cell membrane, the wall is called cell wall. Cell wall. So the cytoplasm of the eukaryotic cells are compartmentalized with membrane bound cell organelles. You know that the cell organelles, which are membrane bound cell organelles, are compartmentalize the cytoplasm of the eukaryotic cells. Cytoplasm of the eukaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells. So this is the mitochondria. Mitochondria. This is Golgi complex. This is lysosomes. This is ribosome and microtubules. These are also membrane bound organelles, cell organelles, which compartmentalize the cytoplasm of eukaryotic cells. So there is a distinct nucleus which is bound with the nuclear membrane. The distinct nucleus which is bound with the nuclear membrane. Nuclear membrane. So this is the nuclear membrane. Nuclear membrane. The nuclear membrane which contains a genetic material in the form of which organize into chromosome. The nucleus which contains the nuclear material organized into what is chromosome. Chromosome. This is the brief structure of the eukaryotic cell. Let me discuss about the various cell organelles and their functions in the eukaryotic cells. Before going to discuss about the various cell organelles in the eukaryotic cells, just we have to discuss before the cell organelles the cell wall. What is cell wall? Cell wall. In eukaryotic cells, the cell wall. So the cell wall is a outer protective layer. The cell wall is a outer protective layer in plants, only in plants, plant cells. Now the cell wall is a outer protective layer in plants. So the plant cells are differ from animal cells. Plant cells or differ from animal cells. Animal cells because of the cell wall. because of the cell wall. So the plant cells are differ from animal cells because of the presence of cell wall. Whereas in animal cells there is no cell wall. Whereas in animal cells there is no cell wall. Only the cell wall is present in plants. The plant cells are differ from animal cells because of the presence of cell wall. For the cell wall was first discovered by Robert Hooke. The cell wall was first discovered by Robert Hooke while he observed the slices of the stem of the oak plant. While he observed the oak plant slice, oak plant stem slice, he observed that the cell wall was first discovered by the Robert Hooke while he was observed the thin sections of the oak plant stem. So the cell wall is a rigid outer layer which is present in both in protista, fungi, animals, plants and algae. The cell wall not only gives the shape to the cells and it protects the cell from infections and interactions. The cell wall not only give the shape to the cell, it protects the cells from interactions and infections. So in algae, the cell wall is made up with the cellulose. The cell wall is made up with the cellulose. The cell wall is made up with the cellulose, galactose and mannans. The cell wall is made up with the galactose, cellulose and mannans material. The cell wall is made up with in algae. The cell wall is made up with the cellulose, galactose and mannans. Whereas in higher plants, the cell wall is made up with the cellulose, hemicellulose, hemicellulose, pectin, which is made of cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. So then cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. So the cellulose, in younger cells, the primary cell wall is present on inner side of the membrane. This is the cell wall which is present on inner side of the membrane. So during the cell division, a middle lamellae is formed. By calcium pectate. So inside the middle lamellae, the primary cell wall is formed by the cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. So mainly the middle lamellae which is present between the two cells. The middle lamellae which is made up with the pectin, calcium pectate. So this is the middle lamellae which is made up with the calcium pectate. Just inside the middle lamellae, the primary cell wall is formed, that is cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. Primary cell wall is flexible. Primary cell wall is this primary cell wall. The inner one is primary cell wall, which is flexible, which help for growth of the cell. Because of the flexibility, it help in growth, cell elongation, growth, and so because of the flexibility, because of the flexible primary cell wall, it is useful in growth of the cell and elongation of the cells. As the cells are mature, the primary cell wall is replaced by the secondary cell wall. As the cells are mature, the primary cell wall is disappear and the secondary cell wall formation takes place by lignin, suberin and pectin. So in place of the primary cell wall, the secondary cell wall is formed as the cells are mature. The primary cell wall is replaced by secondary cell wall, which is made up with the lignin. It is a substance like cellulose. Suberin, it is also substance which is involved. Then pectin. So these are the substances which are deposited in the fibrils of cellulose. In the space of the fibrils of cellulose, the lignin, suberin is deposit. Thus, the secondary cell wall is formed. In mature cells, particularly xylem, some of the areas are uncovered with the secondary wall material. Those uncovered spaces are called pits. So, during this maturation, during this secondary cell wall formation, some of the areas are uncovered with the secondary wall material. These uncovered areas are called pits, which are help intracellular transport. So the middle lamellae which bind the neighboring cells together, which is made up with the calcium pectate, the middle lamellae which is made up with the calcium pectate bind the neighboring cells together, which act as a glues, which act as a cementing. The neighboring cells are bind together by middle lamellae, which is made up with the calcium pectate. So through the pits, the cytoplasmic strands are extended between the cells. So during the secondary wall formation, some of the areas are uncovered with the material. Those areas are called pits. The pits are useful in intracellular transport, and the cytoplasmic strands are extended through the plasmodesmata. These pits through the plasmodesmata to connect to the neighboring cells. This is the cell wall. So let me discuss the cell organelles of the prokaryotes one by one. So what are the structure and function of the cell organelles? So just recall the structure of eukaryotic cell. So all eukaryotic cells are in plants bound with the non-living material, which is a protective layer, and outside the membrane, that is called cell wall. Cell wall is a barrier for unwanted material transport, undesirable material. It is not allow it is a barrier for undesirable material to diffuse into. Then just beneath the cell wall, the cell membrane is present. So let me discuss the cell organelles structure and the eukaryotic cell organelles and structure, its function, structure and functions of the eukaryotic cell. So one of the cell organelle, that is cell membrane. So this is the cell membrane. Just beneath the cell wall, which is delimiting the protoplasm. This is the protoplasm. The protoplasm is delimited by the living membrane, that is the cell membrane, and outside the cell membrane, the non-living material, which is non-living layer, which protects the cell and gives the shape and protects the cell, that is the cell wall. Already we discussed about the cell wall. Cell wall is nothing but a protective layer which is barrier for non-desirable material not to diffuse, which is made up with the in plants cellulose, hemicellulose, pectin, whereas in the algae, which is made of cellulose, galactose and mannans. So first of all, the primary cell wall is formed. Inside the middle lamellae, which is made up with the calcium pectate, which act as a cementing like structure to bind the neighboring cells together, which act as a glues between the neighboring cells. So made up with this calcium pectate, that is the function. Then primary cell wall, which is made up with the cellulose, hemicellulose, pectin. Then as the cells are mature, the primary cell wall is replaced by the secondary cell wall by the lignin, suberin or pectin material. So the secondary wall material, which is made up with this lignin and suberin. So some of the areas are uncovered with the secondary wall material, that is called pits. The pits are useful for inter and intracellular transport, which are both the neighboring cells are connected by the cytoplasmic through the pits, that is the plasmodesmata. Then so let we discuss about the cell organelles and functions one by one. One of the cell organelle, that is the cell membrane. The complete structure of the cell membrane was studied with the advent of microscope after 1950s. The complete structure of the cell membrane was studied with the invention of the microscope only, electronic microscope only. It was possible. So the complete structure of the cell membrane was studied after the invention of the electron microscope, with the advent of electron microscope after 1950. In the meanwhile, the cell membrane structure is studied with the chemical. In the meanwhile, the cell membrane structure is studied. The chemical composition of the cell membrane studied in the meanwhile. So, particularly in human being, erythrocytic cell, the cell membrane was studied. The cell membrane structure was studied. So, according to chemical composition studies, the cell membrane is made up with the lipid bilayer of lipids. So, according to the chemical composition, the cell membrane is bilayered lipid structure. This is the bilayered lipid structure. Bilayered lipid structure. So, in this, the non-polar, in lipid bilayered structure, the non-polar heads are towards and outside the membrane, and the polar heads, heads are towards the inside. So to protect the aqueous environment, the polar heads are, the non-polar heads are towards outside and polar heads are inside. Hydrophilic, hydrophobic. Hydrophobic heads are towards inside to protect the aqueous environment, to protect from aqueous environment the polar heads. Hydrophilic, hydrophobic heads are towards inside. Thus, the first, according to chemical composition studies, the cell membrane in eukaryotes of the human being, the eukaryotic cells of the human being, that it is a bilayered lipid membrane. It consists of two layers, and the outer layer, the non-polar heads are towards outside and polar heads are towards inside. So later on, the chemical composition studies are revealed that the lipid cell membrane is made up with the proteins and carbohydrates. The cell membrane is made up with the proteins and carbohydrates. Later on, the chemical composition studies reveals that the cell membrane is made up with the proteins and carbohydrates. So the percentage of proteins are vary from membrane to membrane. The percentage of the proteins in the cell membrane is vary, rather it is differ from membrane to membrane or different. So in human being red blood cells, eukaryotic red blood cells, the proteins are 60%. The proteins are 60% and carbohydrates are 40%. In human being, the plasma in human being red blood cells, the plasma membrane composed with the 60% of proteins and 40% of carbohydrates. Further, so the proteins are of two types depending on the easily isolation. The proteins are of two types. So that is, one is peripheral proteins, integral proteins. Peripheral proteins and integral proteins. Peripheral protein side. So while we observe that the plasma membrane this is the bilayered plasma membrane. The polar heads are outside, non-polar heads are inside to protect the non-polar heads from aqueous environment. That is the one of the major. So the chemical composition studies, later on the chemical composition studies reveals that the plasma membrane is made up with the proteins and carbohydrates. The composition of the carbohydrates and proteins in the plasma membrane is vary. That depends on the type of cell. So type of cell. Here the proteins are 60% and carbohydrates are 40% in red blood cells of the human being. So, depending on the easily isolation of the proteins in the plasma membrane, it is of two types. So, integral proteins, some of the proteins which are completely buried in the plasma membrane. The proteins, the larger protein which are completely buried in the membrane, that is called integral proteins. The proteins which are present and the membrane outside, then it is called peripheral proteins. Peripheral proteins. So they have these side chains, the sugar molecule side chain, sugar chains. This is the structure of the chemical composition of the structure of the plasma membrane. So later on, a new model was proposed by Singer and Nicholas in 1972. A new model was proposed to the plasma membrane, that fluid mosaic model. Fluid mosaic model. A fluid mosaic model, a latest and modified model was proposed by Singer and Nicholson. Singer and Nicholson. Singer and Nicholson proposed a new model, fluid mosaic model. Because of the fluid structure, it is enabled to pass the membranes, pass the molecules across the membrane. So fluid mosaic model was accepted by scientists. So because of the fluid structure, the plasma membrane enable the molecules pass across the membrane. Enable the molecules across the membrane. Thus, because of the fluid model, the molecules are pass across on either side. So that is the modified new model, fluid mosaic model, proposed by the Singer and Nicholson. So let me here conclude the topic. Day after tomorrow we will continue the same topic to continue the structure of the cell membrane, its function. Thank you.
మీ స్కూల్స్ మరియు కాలేజ్ విద్యార్థుల కోసం ఆన్లైన్ డిజిటల్ క్లాसेस ద్వారా బోధించాలనుకుంటున్నారా?
क्या आप आपके कॉलेजेस, स्कूल्स और ट्यूशंस को डिजिटलाइज करना चाह रहे हैं?
మీ విద్యార్థుల కోసం సరైన ప్లాట్‌ఫామ్ వెతుకుతున్నారా?
क्या आप ऑनलाइन क्लासेस के लिए किसी बेहतर प्लेटफॉर्म की तलाश में हैं?
అయితే మా ఏఎన్ ఛానల్ ద్వారా